Good morning. It's Christina with your AM Manna. And this morning's manna is coming from Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. And it reads, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." Commit means to pledge, to obligate oneself, assurance, to devote oneself to a person or thing. And establish means to set up a firm or permanent basis. So Proverbs chapter 16 verse 3 reads again, "Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans." Devote yourself to the Lord. Pledge ourselves to the Lord in whatever it is that we're doing, and he will establish our plans. He will affirm set up on a permanent basis. The way they say it here, the way I've heard it said is this: take care of God's business, and God will take care of ours. God says that everything we need, we already have. God shows us a vision. He shows us where he's taking us. He says that we're supposed to write the vision, make it plain, so that he that sees it can run with it. The plan is not for God to see so that he can run with it. The plan is for us to see so that we can run with it. That means simply that when we write it down, we see it. And as we see it, we do it. We move in it. And for everything that God has shown us that he wants to do in our lives, if given us a vision or someone has spoken over, he sent someone to speak into our lives to plant a seed, there's instructions, there's things that must be done to get to that place. And so as God begins to show us the things and the steps that are needed to get to that place, God says that everything we have, that we need to do what he has called us to do, we already have. Now, I remember I used to say, well, God, you said that you want me to do this, this, and this, but I don't have the money for that. And I remember one day he sat me down and he said, "Christina, the word says that when I can trust you with little, I'll make you rulers over much." He said that a sacrifice simply means that to give up something. When you said yes to God, when you said yes to me, Christina, you said yes to my will and yes to my way. So that means that when, Christina, you said yes to me and my will and my way, everything that you had planned for yourself goes on the back burner. So everything that you planned for yourself, goes on the back burner. Because my plans took the forefront when you said yes to my will, when you said yes to my way. That says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he will establish your plans. So when you said yes to my will and yes to my way, you said that you were going to put your plans for your life and yourself on the back burner. And that everything that you did would be for me. It would be a part of my plan. A part of what I've called for the will of my will for your life. And doing it the way that I called you to do it so that you can get there. So when God shows us a thing, and we write what he has shown us, write the vision down, there are steps that must be taken for that vision to be fulfilled. Now, God says that everything we need to fulfill that vision, we already have. But God says, what are we doing with what we have? When I can trust you with little, I'll make you rulers over much. But what are we doing with what we already have? God says that some of us are sitting around holding our hands, but the word says that faith without works is dead. God says we're twiddling our fingers, saying that we're waiting on him to send the resources to do what we need to do, but we already have them. When God told Abraham to get up and pack up his family and go, he did not tell Abraham where he was going. Abraham began to move, and in moving, what he had for him was released. God says, what are we doing with the little that he has already given us? Are we being good stewards over that which he has given us? Are we making sure that what we're doing with the resources that we already have, that it's God's will? The things that God has shown us, are we taking care of God's business first? Are we committing ourselves? Are we devoting ourselves to what God has shown, the vision that God has given? God says that when we begin to look at the steps, when we break down the vision, there's steps, small steps, big steps, and it gets bigger as we go. But there are steps that we can take with the little that we have. We say that we don't have money to do the things that God has shown us. We may not have all the money to do the full thing, but we have enough to start. We have enough to start. God says that a sacrifice simply means to give up something. We want something from God. We want the windows of heaven opened up to pour out the blessing so big we don't have room to receive. But God says, what are we doing with what we have? When he can trust us with little, he'll make us rulers over much. God says we're sitting here saying we're waiting on him to give us the resources to fulfill the vision that he has given us. He said, because we're looking at the vision in a whole. We're looking at the end result. We're looking at the fullness of the picture when we're not focusing on the steps that get us to the vision. God says that we're saying that we don't have the resources to fulfill the vision, but we have some of the resources to start the vision. To start taking some of the steps, and in taking the steps, then God begins to give us more resources to do that which he's called us to do. But he has to be able to trust us with what he has given us already. God says we say that we don't have, that we can't, if God gave us a t-shirt, a business vision, we say, oh, we can't do that because we don't have the equipment. But the steps, you need more than just the equipment. How about we start with the small things? Faith without works is dead. When we start stepping out on faith and we know that that was the vision that God gave us, this is what he told us, then you know what? We start taking all the necessary steps. What about the smaller steps, the things that are in our grasp that we can do? When God sees us moving in those things, then he'll trust us with more, and then he'll provide more so that we can move forward. God says we don't have, but he sit around and watch us buy a coffee, a $6 coffee every day. A $6 coffee that we say we need, but we don't need. That's not a necessity. A sacrifice simply means to give up something. While God sits and watches us with the vision that he's given us, we've buried it and we've left it laying there because we say we don't have the resources to fulfill it, but we haven't even begun to take the steps towards it. A sacrifice simply means to give up something. How about we give up that cup of coffee that we have every day? We can buy a box of coffee, and guess what? We can make it at home. We don't have to go to Starbucks every morning. We don't have to eat out every day. We don't have to go to the club every weekend. We don't need that new outfit. We don't need our nails done. We don't need our hair done. Anything that we need, then we can do for ourselves. Because you can learn to do your own hair. You can learn to do your own nails. I know for a fact you can, because I've had to. I've had to. It's not a sacrifice if it doesn't hurt. A sacrifice is simply giving up something. We say that we love God, God says, with our lips, but yet our hearts are so far from him. God says that when we commit to the Lord, whatever we do, then he will establish our plans. When we devote ourselves to him and his way and his will, and business, kingdom business, the vision that God has set before us, when we begin to take the steps to move in it, instead of sitting waiting for one big lump sum to start it, it takes steps. Small steps. Progress is progress, no matter how small the steps are. God says, what are we doing with what he's already given us? A sacrifice means to give up something. We're not willing to sacrifice anything. We want that cup of coffee every morning because we told ourselves we need it. We got to go get our nails done every 2 weeks because we told ourselves that we need it. I need those shoes. No, we don't need those shoes if you have 25 pair in your closet. You don't need them. You wanted them. I need that outfit. You got clothes in the closet with tags on it that you haven't even worn. You didn't need it. You wanted it. There's a lot of things that we say we need that we don't need. We just want them. And as long as we focus on the things that we want, we're not committed to the things of the Lord. God says, commit to the Lord whatever you do, and he then will establish our plans. And there's a stipulation there that we must do. So that means that we must do this in order to get that. God says that if we take care of his business, kingdom business, if we put his business first before ourselves, it may be something that is not bad. We may want to pay a bill off, that we have the funds to do so now. But there's some things that God done told us. He done put a vision before us. Guess what? Although that's a good thing to do, but guess what? If we take them funds that we would have done with that and put them over here into God's business and the vision that God has given us, when he see us making steps towards it, guess what? He'll take care of that for us. How do we know? Because he said it in his word. God is not a man that he should lie. He said if we put him first, commit ourselves to him, he will establish our plans permanently, on a permanent basis. Set up on a permanent basis. He'll establish us. But he has to know that he can trust us with the little that he's already given. What are we doing? What are we putting money into that we don't need to be putting money into, that we could be putting it towards the vision that God has given us? No matter how small it is. Steps. And God will begin to open doors as we move. Guy had told me to start a t-shirt, gave me a vision for t-shirts, spiritual shirts, t-shirts. I said that I don't know how I'm going to do that. I don't know how to make t-shirts. I don't have the equipment to do that. And I don't have the money to buy it, to do it. Now, I had applied for a line of credit. And they had refused me like 3-4 times. And I had just finished praying one night. And God said, Christina, I want you to go apply for a line of credit with that company again. And I was like, Lord, I applied already. Them people told me no like 2-3 times. I'm not about to do that. I went to bed. When I woke up in the morning to pray, it just was heavy in my spirit. I just kept hearing it. So apply again. So I did. And I got approved for $2,600. Enough to get the equipment to do my shirts. I got the equipment and I began to do the shirts. How? Because after God blessed me with the equipment, every extra dime that I had out the paying my tithes and my bills, I took it and I put it towards doing those shirts. I took it and put it into building a website for those shirts. I said, God, I don't have the money to pay somebody to do a website because designers are expensive. God says you have a brain, right? You can learn, right? Yeah. So you know what? You can do it too. You can do your own website. Lord, I can't do my own website and make it look like those people. Yes, you can. You can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. So I sat down and I watched some YouTube videos. I did some research on it and I learned it. And then I created my own website. I created my own website. I said, well, God, I gotta market my t-shirts. I can't afford to pay somebody to do flyers. So God says, Christina, you have a brain, right? Yes. You can learn, right? Yes. Okay, then you can. You got it in you. You can do it. So I sat down again and I watched some more YouTube videos. And I looked up some flyer apps to make flyers, templates. I found one. It was $9.99 a month. I paid for it. I subscribed to it. And then I sat there behind the scenes and I played with it and played with it and played with it until I figured it out. And as I began to practice, I began to perfect it. And guess what? I taught myself how to do flyers because I couldn't afford to pay anybody to do them for me. God says that everything you need to fulfill the vision is in you. We're waiting around for God to send us the resources when everything we need, God has already given us. What are we doing with what God has given us? See, we don't want to make any sacrifices, but we want what God has shown us. Sacrifice the time that we could have been out with friends, sitting there watching those YouTube videos, learning to do it, researching it. Because when God's business becomes important to us and takes forefront, then God will establish us and he'll open doors. And I learned how to make flyers. I learned how to do my own website. I taught myself how to do t-shirts from watching videos. Because what God had, the vision that God had given was important. So I took the little that I had and I made it work. And I made it work. And now I'm doing t-shirts and designs, coming up with logos for people. I'm doing flyers for people. Because I took what was in me, what God gave me, and I made it work. Now, had I had the funds to do that, I would have never learned how to do those things. Because I would have just paid somebody else to do them. But because I didn't have the funds and they weren't made available readily right away, I picked up some talents. Stirred up some gifts that were on the inside of me. See how God works? God said multiple streams of income, but they're already in you. You just have to, what are we doing with them? We're sitting on our hands waiting on God to do something when God is waiting on us to move. Faith without works is dead. It didn't take off right away. No, it took time. I even put it down a couple of times because I didn't see any progress in it. But every time God said, pick it up, now it's time to pick it up, I picked it up. God says that what are we doing with what he's already given us? God says we say we don't have the resources. But we managed to go out and eat. We managed to do our nails. We managed to get everything done that we want to do for ourselves. While we say we're waiting on God to fulfill the vision. When we haven't even begun to take the steps towards it. To show him that we received it. And we believe it when he spoke it. God says that we're supposed to commit to the Lord whatever we do, and then he will establish our plans. A sacrifice means to simply give up something. What are we willing to give up? What is God watching us do with what we already have? We say, oh, we've seen the vision, we've wrote it down, we're waiting on God to do it. And we don't have the resources for it, but we managed to find the resources for whatever it is that is important to us. God says, is his business important enough to us for us to stop doing what we want to do and sacrifice and give up something so we can have something greater than what we already have? God says, commit ourselves today. Everything that we do to him. And he will establish our plans. He will give us the desires of our heart. When he becomes first and priority in our lives. We'll assess where we're spending money that we could be saving and using toward the vision that God has given us. We say we're waiting on God, but God says he's waiting on us.